All right, thank you very much, Natala, for that backgrounder. We have three guests here with us in the Abuja studios. Would like to welcome Ali M. Ali. Ali, of course, is the former spokesperson of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Ali, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning, Kinsley. It's good to be here again. Good morning, Nigerians.
Also here with us in the studios is Ayobami Oyalowo, a political scientist. We're glad that you are here with us in the studios.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, and it is also my pleasure to introduce Ezenwa Nwagu, who is Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms, and of course a well-known familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long while.
Thank you. We've been here.
I know.
From time to time, as the saying goes. All right. So we're glad that our three guests are here with us. We know that the EU Observer report on the 2023 elections has generated, as the saying goes, mixed reactions. The presidency was blunt in dismissing the report. And of course, the opposition have, on their own part, said no, that couldn't possibly be the case. Now, there are others who have said that, look beneath, and there you will find some real value in terms of the recommendations being made by the EU observation report. Now, let's begin, gentlemen, by taking a look broadly at what is playing out. Are we throwing the baby away with the bathwater in saying that, look, this report amounts to nothing? Indeed, there are some gems that we want to take a look at. Ali, let's begin with you.
Well, you can't say the whole of it, that the report itself, in totality, is good. If you look at it, some of the takeaways there, it's something when they talk about systemic weaknesses, I can understand that. The operational framework, the legal framework, broadly speaking. But the import of that, which they were being clever by half in the report, is that ultimately they're pointing in the direction of the legitimacy of the mandate given to the president, Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They're just being very clever, couching in the most harmless language. It's up to people to read in between the lines that actually they are saying in more ways than one that the electoral process itself was compromised when they talk of the electoral empire not being transparent and then not delivering on some of the promises it has made before the election, assuring Nigerians. For example, they faulted the glitches recorded in the viewers, in the IRIV, and stuff like that. But impliedly is that, look, the unexpectedly, because of this implied suggestion that the systemic weaknesses gave birth to this. Now, unless you are very circumspect, you can read in between the lines, because the import of the entire report, which was released in piecemeal, and that gives the impression that it's not mere a report, but there is the political undertone there, and they turn out to be so different from the rest of the head. What I mean, the rest of the head, other similar electoral missions, observer missions that were in the country, had a more neutral report. If you look at the report of the Commonwealth, the ECOWAS, and so many others, Nigerian Bar Association, they gave a fairly, if you look at, in fact, above average, because they reported this observer mission are listed. The ECOWAS, Commonwealth, African Union, you name them, they're there. But now you have EU coming with plus minus less than 100 observers. In fact, 50 of them, 11 of them DEX analysts. The remaining 40 spread across the vast expanse of Nigeria. How could a country like Nigeria, with over 176,000 polling units, then you have a ridiculous number of 40 people out in the field, spread to give you a report, field report? I mean, how much of it will make an approximate what had happened in the process. You are basing your report, like somebody pointed out, on a lot of assumptions because you are not there. And given the nature of our politics, if you know the history of Nigerian politics and election, especially with the social media in the mix, a lot of misrepresentation of event taken out of context, something that happened maybe, for example, I have seen a footage that has been making the round since 2003 of underage voting. Sometimes it's been represented again as something that is contemporary. So a lot of gaps. So when you compare the EU report and then the others that similarly came to the shores of Nigeria, you find that there is a wide disparity, and then you question the motive, the rationale, that look, there is more than what means. And more importantly is the reaction of the opposition, because the EU report gave the opposition a false sense of hope, what they have been hoping for. And only yesterday, I think the Presidential Election Tribunal admitted the EU report as, well, is it evidence now? I'm trying to recall the exact word. So you will say the EU, actually, the EOM, though, to also be fair to the observer mission, a lot of people don't know that the EU election observer mission is totally independent of the EU member countries. As a matter of fact, the EU member countries, some of them have congratulated the president. They've accepted the authenticity that the Nigerian people have spoken. The president was recently in France. The first country he visited, France, is a leading member of EU, and France actually invited the president to. So, but you say yes, there is more than what meets the eye. The motive there, that is the motive that is.
For you, that's the area of concern.
Precisely.
Okay.
Otherwise, the takeaways, like they said, some of them they've pointed out. Yes, there are systemic weaknesses. Okay. Election is a work in progress. Okay. There is no perfect election anywhere.
Okay. Let's also bring in Ezenwa. Government's reaction and response or reaction of the general public. Looked at the parameters, for arriving at the EU's conclusion, and I would like you to share with us your own perspective surrounding the parameters. For instance, the data gathering by the EU observers and the credibility of that process.
Well, it won't be in my place to interrogate the credibility or otherwise of the process, their own process. But what I would hazard to do will be to say Nigeria has relationship over a period of time with the EU and its IOM. That's the observer mission that comes to, and this is not the first time it has come to observe elections. The same process that it has always used, which is first and foremost to send a whistle visitors. I call them whistle visitors because you come in, you spread like Ali said, but there are also local partners, domestic partners who work with the EU, who help to also, yes, who they rely upon to get what they think will be a wider spread. But so what will need to happen is to first make a general statement for me, which is why the election observation? Why are you coming? What is the driving motive for you to always think that there's this process? Is it something about, is it that we can't do it well and that there's always a need for you to come help us? At what point are we going to get to the point where you no longer think is important? Because there is no IOM to American election. EOM to American election, no EOM to British election, no EOM to French election. You come to Africa. Every time there is an election in Africa, you have long-term, short-term observers, and most of what you do is what is being referred to. You first do desktop, which is okay, is an agreeable means of gathering information, but the sensitivities, the objective conditions of the reality that is on ground is something you cannot be arrogant about. You need to understand the sensibilities. There are 6 clear areas in which those recommendations have come out.
Whose standard is being benchmarked?
That's what I'm saying. You determine you are the one that determines you determine everything. You know what you are coming to look for, but I'm not quarreling with that. I just want to look at the report that you have brought out. I checked the 2019 report. I checked the 2023 report. I looked at your recommendations in 2023. I looked at what you have done in 2019. I want to think that for us as a country, in terms of institutional leapfrogging of our electoral process, we did shift the needle.
Okay.
We had an electoral law that was sweeping, that helped us to take away some of the challenges that we were facing. For instance, the Section 65, sir, which talks about the fact that INEC, once a return is made, nobody can review. Mm-hmm. We had a situation in 2023 in which we reviewed 3 fundamental issues which were not there, which couldn't have happened: Adamawa, Enugu, and Abia. That Section 65 gave us the opportunity to intervene directly in making sure that those things are not are not eventually determined by a tribunal. So that's a major shift. So when you say legal framework, for instance, you have not taken into cognizance the progress that Electoral Act 2022 has given to us. When you talk about appointment of national resident electoral commissioners and the rest of them, those are constitutional issues. It is the government that does that. So except you are looking at the election as the process that it is from the beginning to the end. And Kingsley, you were part of the engagement when we came here, and as a people we are saying, look, the appointment of certain resident electoral commissioners did not follow for us as civil society. The media did not follow proper processes, and we did follow up to the National Assembly, which is the place to go to. But the National Assembly, in its wisdom, which has a conglomeration of political parties, passed those nominees. So in terms of the process, I don't know how we can help. Safety for journalists, I thought that is a security issue. And then finally, the ones that for me will need reform is about access. They talked about access to results. Access to results real time. And as somebody who is a participant observer in the process, I was asking myself, who should have access to results at the polling unit?
Agent or voter or?
No, but there are 3 levels that has been satisfied at that level. Number 1 is that from EC8A, which is the manual result sheet, is handed over to party agents and the security. It is after they have collected those results that you can then upload. But there is also a lift in terms of the integrity level for election result management, which is the form E60, which is what we call the people's results, which is mandatorily pasted on the wall for interested voters in that polling unit. They can have opportunity to take a snapshot. So if you talk about the different layers, the voter in the polling unit has been satisfied by E60E. The party agent has been satisfied by from EC8A. So when you say access, you are now talking about the one that is pasted, I mean the IREV, which is that IREV I have continued to maintain is an add-on. It is something that is added for 2020 to 2003. You cannot find results in the cloud. 1999, you cannot find any results of that election as an academic or an interested person.
Researcher,
you can't find them. But today, with all the weaknesses of it, you can find some results. If you are studying Nigerian election 2023, you can find it in the cloud. So that is access. So it for me did not take into cognizance the objective conditions of the reality, and that for me is the arrogance of knowledge that we know. And I've said in many platforms that yes, even if you are an international election observer, you must be trained, because the recruitment does not necessarily mean people who work in elections. It could be political people. Our former president, for instance, is an international, is in our former vice president, we are all in this thing. So they visit, they're in Senegal, they are everywhere. The fact that somebody is president, vice president, or political, or has worked as a minister somewhere, or even in civil society, does not guarantee that the person has taken the pains to understand these processes.
Thank you.
And can deliver and procedures.
Thank you.
All right, Ezenwa, thank you very much there for drilling into this issue. We'll pick up some of the items later on when we get back to you. Let's bring in Oyalawo right now. Let's have your own pitch on the EU report in terms of reactions and even content of the report.
Yeah, thank you very much. My two initial speakers have said a lot and makes a lot of sense. For instance, as one question, what is even the motive of you coming? We don't go to observe election in France, we don't go to observe election in Britain. Why are you even here in the first place? Is that telling us that you think you are more important to us than we are? So for me, the motive is a very big issue. And then I even have you can ask yourself, we've had this election since February, March. Why is the report just coming out almost 5 months or thereabouts after, when the government has settled in? Do you have an agenda that we are not aware of? So those are some of the things you begin to ask yourself. And like Ezenwa also drilled in the arrogance of knowledge. Because if you were in Nigeria in 1999, during the election, you were in Nigeria in 2011, if you were in Nigeria in 2007 and 2011, especially 2007, the one that brought in President Yar'Adua, you will not sit somewhere in Europe and say this election was a sham, because that 2007 election till today is still very magical. The way the results came out before we even finished voting at the polling units. But unlike then, I maintained the last time I was in this studio that 2023 election has been the best so far, because everybody have access. If the voter has access, like he rightly pointed out, the agent have access, the security have access, and then general public also have access using the IREV. But I see that the losing parties in the election especially have tried to bamboozle people without trying to explain the fact that the IREV is just an additional comfort, and whatever the IREV has now either put up or did not put up, your party agents at every polling unit have the results, which is something I've been maintaining. So every party has a result of whatever happened in every polling unit. And yes, there are issues with maybe security challenges in some places, maybe a little bit of violence here and there, but every problem that has been reported has been less than 1,000 polling units, and we have 176,776 polling units. So which means whatever problem you want to say happened is so infinitesimal. If you are a researcher, I mean, whether you are using the Yaro Tamani, you are using the whatever research methodology you want to use, it is so insignificant to affect the whole of the result. As a researcher, you will always give that to what happened in the election. If you have less than 1,000 problems, I mean, if you have a problem in less than 1,000 polling units, and the original number is 176,000, or if you are rounding it off to 177,000 polling units, then the election is generally seen as fair and credible. Yes, you will never have a perfect election anywhere in the world. As we are still speaking, former President Trump is refusing to accept the result, has still refused to accept the result of the election that brought in President Biden, who is almost completing that term. So there is no election that is perfect in the world. But if you put it side by side with 2019, 2015, we have made a lot of progress, especially in the legal framework. I remember in 2015, we had the card readers, which does not have any supporting legal framework, which helped some states to do the election under the table and say, look, there is no law, and Supreme Court actually backed them because it was not. But now we have the BVAS, the bimodal voting voter accreditation system, which means you can be accredited either with your facial recognition or your fingers. And the beautiful thing about the BVAS is that it helps to curtail inflation of votes. So it's a huge plus for us. For instance, if you have 25 people accredited here, you cannot have 26 people in the result. If it is more than 25, automatically it invalidates that polling unit. So these are good development that has really taken place in our election. So which means forever now, people can't sit in one room like they used to do and decide to generate result, and then it must fly because there is, it's everything goes. So you have to look at all that has happened in the past years and elections, and like he rightly said, you have to be trained. You have to understand this. For instance, as a party person, we were made to go for training, and I think I went for about 3 trainings, different trainings, so that I can understand what was expected on the day of the election. Even though I eventually didn't act as an agent or anything, I clearly understood what was going to happen at every stage of the election. So if you don't understand this, you can easily sit down in one room, just look at what is going on social media, and like Ali said, social media is another jungle on its own. People can just create their own news, like they call it fake news now. Somebody can bring out a video of what happened in 1999 and try to put it up as it is just happening now, and then everybody start running around because there's no law back in that place. Anyone who comes in with 40 observers will never be able to have a clear picture of what is going on, because you have a country where, one, you have 927,000 square kilometers of land mass, you have 177,000 polling units, and you have just 40 people sitting there. They will generally infer their result. Their result will generally be inference, not actual capture of what has gone on. So for me, the 2023 election, however imperfect you might want to put it, has been the best we have had. What we can always ask for is improvement, because you always want improvement.
Yes. Thank you for your thoughts. Let me just put you on hold for a while and then bring in Ali again into our conversation. We've all agreed that yes, some of the areas pointed out by the EU's report, Ali, as you've rightly admitted, certainly areas we need to look at. Ezenwa also talked about leapfrogging, between 2019 and 2023. Ayo says we've made tremendous progress. Yes, indeed, the use of the BVAS, the fact that we can also review, systems and other, and so many other, additions, value additions that the Electoral Act added. But the question is, Ali, are those leapfrogging significant enough such that they drown the echoes or the roars that the EU's report had generated?
Let me just say that, look, with the benefit of what I'd had from these previous speakers, and especially Ezamo, I think the whole thing now is, it becomes political. Because the intent, why, I'm slightly taking us back now. Unless you know the intent, the motive, why are they here? Why were they here? And then they said
They were invited.
Okay.
Yes,
but
I don't know. As observers are invited.
Okay.
It's at the behest of the host country.
No, they apply. They say they want to come, and then you are giving approval.
Okay.
INEC accredits them.
Okay.
It's not that we go to ask them to come. No, they say we want to come, and then INEC says the same way domestic observers are accredited is the way they are accredited.
Yes, I didn't want to interrupt your flow of thought.
No, but it's
I just wanted to get that
because
clear.
there are some things
because Nigeria is a global player.
Absolutely.
And
an important one for them. Yes.
Contributor on the international scene.
Is America not a Yoruba player? Why are you not going to observe them?
No, in fact, that's the point.
Did you apply? Did we apply to observe?
Make room for you to apply. So maybe we need to close that window.
Because you see, the thing is, sometimes is the motive itself. The motive, they set the rules, they set the standard. I mean, you don't know what is it that they're coming to look at. They are the ones who set the standard for themselves. And like the previous speakers, especially Ezomo here, said, look, most of them, actually, they are not trained to observe the thing that would actually give validation to whatever conclusion they will have. They are political people. In other words,
they already have templates.
Exactly. You come, we have templates, and then you can't there is no one size fits all kind of thing.
That's the problem.
You understand, and that's why, in fact, even the review in some places where it shows that, look, nothing is cast in stone. Of course, there are some things that are sacrosanct. For example, now, you can't have an underage person to vote. This is totally abominable. Now, but they come with their own standards, which unbeknown to some of us. And then the goal there is them that check the template. And you see there is a subtle pressure, the timing. The government has barely a month, and they apparently have no regard for our legal system. Some of the issues they raised, trying to impugn the integrity of the election process, there are issues of litigation, they are in court. And then the timing. Sometimes people say, when they want to say between wisdom and knowledge, they say knowledge is knowing when to say. That's knowledge. But wisdom is knowing when to express that knowledge. And clearly you can see that barely a month plus, there is a mandate that has been contested, and then you come in with a report. That is, to me, tactless. It's political, more than anything else. The other observers...
But we are under no compulsion. They are just mere recommendations. The country is under no compulsion to,
of course,
take the recommendation.
But you see, this new position, I mean, at a time like this, and given the reaction of the opposition, which have been given any false sense of hope, is that it has become really political. When the AU, African Union, the Commonwealth, look at their own parameters, what they said, that there is substantial compliance with the processes, 90% compliance. Just maybe some of the infringements, the imperfection, less than 9%. Nowhere. You can't go to Europe, for example, set the same standard. They don't even open their doors to election observers. We just establish that fact now. If the electoral empire wasn't transparent enough, one of the issues they raised, it would have said, look, we're not allowing you to come in. But you see, we have made substantial progress, didn't mention, from the magic that was the 2007 election. The election of 2007 till this moment, the man who conducted that election is vociferously defending that election over and over again. One of the election, even the beneficiary of that election acknowledged that, look, the election that brought him into office was flawed, but that did not substantially invalidate his mandate. And that government took steps to electoral reform, leading for the first time, because of electoral reforms done, that a sitting government at the center was dislodged by the opposition in 2015. In 2011, because of we began to move into leveraging on technology, and by 2015, when the smart card reader was introduced, some of the known shortcomings of the previous polls, like the one in 2007, the magic of 2007, were addressed. And then by 2023, we've leapfrogged really, if you look at it. And then look at one very significant thing that happened in this election. The collective vote of the opposition. The opposition, I've never seen an election where the opposition went into the contest progressively weakened, splintered, fractured, right down to the bottom, hoping to dislodge the party in office. In 2015, the opposition actually coalesced, built a united front and dislodged the government. But in 2023, the opposition miraculously, I would say rather, it wasn't a miracle there. I think they were not this smart.
I will get the point you're making.
Yes.
Suppose somebody would argue that was the action of fifth columnists. What would be your reaction?
Well, the fifth columnist, no, but this is war. Political people will tell you. Yes, that Mao Zedong will tell you, say politics.
Okay, all right, Ali, thanks a lot. I just threw that in, because it's something that also analysts will also take a look at. But let's streamline some of the issues that have been raised. Okay. Is there a presumption, or should there be a presumption that an election observer mission would head for a jurisdiction with improper motive? In other words, could we possibly say, for purposes of argument, that the EU or European Observer Election Mission had some improper motive in coming to observe our election, against the backdrop of our continuing relationship with the EU? I know you made a point about the segregation of the EU member states and then the EU Election Observer Mission. The head of delegation of EU has been our guest on Good Morning Nigeria. They keep talking about our relationship with the EU. Well, EU, one of our strong development partners. I'm not sure that INEC can't deny the support that it has received from the EU for electioneering purposes. So, and if you're putting your money somewhere and you want to see how that money is being spent, or your support, let's put it that way, somewhere, there is a sense in which you have a legitimate desire to observe things, and you are not imposing yourself. You still have to apply. And if the election management body says, okay, come, then you come.
There's first is to look at what is the percentage of the support, because it's very important when we hear support. Is it 2%? Is it 1%? What is the whole donor support for the country? What does it come to? Because we are people who have, by some way, our history, our colonial, have somehow. And like Professor Lumumba will say, we don't always want to. So when we have an election, if the EU does not speak, then every other person that has spoken does not matter, because they made a contribution. In some countries, Senegal, there are donors that come, and the civil society in Senegal will say, go, we don't want you. We don't want you to be here. We don't understand you. We don't understand you are play in our country. It's just a patriotic thing, but that's a general statement on the fact that you support a process does not mean you should now tell us about where we do our procurement. I don't know if you understand. You are coming to question whether we are buying stuff from Asia or from Europe. those things are not part of your election monitoring business. There is now a political economy to that your support, and it's important to put that out as an understanding to say, look, yes, you are supporting us, but do you now want to, because of that your support, if we did transaction with China, for instance, are we going to be punished because we are going Asia and we are not going
west
to the west? Does it have a connotation? You are questioning how much per head is this your beavers? Now, the point for me is the reports of the process. There are positives. Even in that report, if you read it, there are positives. But those positives, the structure of the report, from beginning to the summary, ran in a negative tone. And that negative tone is what is generating
the adverse reactions.
The adverse reactions that you are seeing. The report in 2019 did not carry this tone. It carried a warmer tone. Here you said beavers worked 98%, but however, everything you put however. My quarrel with that is simply that as a non-partisan, because it's very important that is your cliche of non-partisanship, you cannot make reports that undermine, first and foremost, because of your support, that undermine the sovereignty. I have a challenge with that.
Okay.
But having said that, what are the things about this election? Let us not make any mistake that we had a perfect process.
Yes, and that's where I'm coming to, Ezenwa, for us to look at the other issues. Again, the report touched on the integrity of the process. It talked about, the credibility of the process. It talked about the integrity of, the constitution of the INEC itself, the selection of those who constitute INEC as members, and it also talked about the law, the ambiguity in the law. Can we look at some of these issues and evaluate to what extent they impacted, on the conduct?
If their conclusion is anything, that's where, if the conclusion is anything, it is weak. I try to establish that in the sense that if the ambiguity produced lack of access to results, the expert is here, Oga Kinsley, in terms of the law. The law is very, I have said, where does collation announcement of results end in our election? Collation and announcement of results ends at the polling unit. I need somebody to say it is not, that's not where it ends. It ends when you have posted the result on the IRF. And I said, no, that is not the law. The law, announcement and result, ends when your party agent
gets hold of
that's
to say counting an announcement. Collation would then be addition of the various polling units.
Okay, sorry, yes. So that collation, but at the polling unit, announcement of result ends where your party agent and the security have collected. So everybody is involved in collation. INEC, in improving the integrity of the process, let's take Rivers State or some other places where you had election observers call out, what happened in that place. You can then say, for instance, the result in the IRF, according to the law, when collation is taking place, the one in the IRF takes precedence over the one that was computed. Now, INEC has produced results of, for instance, Rivers on the IRF, right? This is INEC's creation, not civil society creation, not media creation. INEC itself said, this is our auditor. We are presenting to you an auditor. If you as an agent have your own copy of the result, results in the polling unit can be got through intimidation. It can be got through option AK-47. It can be, you can produce results there. But the truth now is that you now have opportunity to do a cross-check
of what you have
and what is. That helps you. INEC is the one that created that to help political parties and interested parties.
So what this report seems to be suggesting is that it is the results on the IREF that supersedes probably whatever results that is gotten.
It is not them saying so. At the point of collation, if there is a conflict at collation and there is a result at the IREF, if there is nobody making a complaint, it's very important. If nobody is making a complaint, nobody goes to IREF. It is at the collation point where there is a conflict that the returning officer is mandated to do what? To check whether what is on ground. So there has to be a complaint. That is now the relevance of the party agent. The party agent is empowered by law to first and foremost make a report on a returning officer or a presiding officer who refuses or delegates in the responsibility of posting that result. There is a jail term and a fine for presiding officers who refuse to do that. So all of this is I'm just saying that is a transparency tool. It's all a voter identity theft management that helps you. So when you now say access, I am worried. That's what I'm saying. So when you say ambiguity in the law, laws does not capture. The expert is also, I don't know any law that covers everything you want to do. But it must substantially address a malady that occasion is being brought into the, and if we test it and we find out that it's not working well, we go for an amendment. If that is the view in terms of what is the recommendation, of course there are issues. People are confused about what this IREF is about and all of that. In terms of, so that clarity needs to be provided. I think there are values that we can take. I'm not dismissing the report. I am dismissing the tone in which it is crafted. Okay. And that tone is as a result of the conflict between perhaps those who went to the field and the drafters themselves
of the report.
Of the report.
Okay, Ezenwa, thank you very much for that elaboration and clarification. Olawo, two issues here. One, this is the final report from the election observer mission of the European Union. So there is presumably a preliminary report that they had previously issued. Because comments had been made as regards the timing of the release of this final report. So presumably there had been preliminary accounts of what went on. Now, that's one. Second point is there were a number of other observer missions for the election. And by your own assessment, their accounts and reports were more salutary, as it were, rather than this tar brush, in your view, that the EU has tended to use mostly in describing the election. Why should anyone be worried, therefore, about the EU report if there are other reports that can provide countervailing positions on what they're talking about?
Well, we've all agreed here, all the speakers, the reason why the European Union report is generating so much interest is simply because of a few things. One, the timing. The government is just settling in, and there's been international accolade for some of the decision that has been taken by the president. So you coming in is like trying to throw spanners in the work, and also we are just I think the opposition has closed their case at the appeal, and at this kind of time it's just like giving them a voice to say, hey, we said it. So for everyone with any thinking mind, you think this has some political agenda to it. And like Ezenwa brought out, there's a political economy even behind it all. Because when you begin to say you should have done this in Europe, not China, you see, what we also must understand in international relations is that nobody loves you. Everybody, no matter what they do, no matter the languages, the cakes and carrots that were handed, there is always a motive behind everything in international relations. You must know this. Even when soldiers are sent to quell wars and destruction in other places. So for us, the motive is always very more important than even the action. So this report, and like Ezenwa also said, the language, the tonation, and the reportage of the report carries a lot of negativity, because even when the positive is being reported, and then you always close with a however, and you see there are cultural and a lot of differences between us and them. You can't come with a one-size-fits-all mentality, because the way and manner we respond to stimuli here is not the same way they do. For instance, the things that I can do in Nigeria and I think it's normal, they might say it's not normal. I'm trying to be very political here and not say some things that because we're on TV. I was going to look at the recent parade and all things that they had there. They will tell you it's a human rights issue, and for us here, we think there are more serious issues to human rights than what people want to do behind their bedrooms. So we don't all think this. So you must understand context. And I honestly wish I had seen what was their preliminary report. That would have guided even the way I am thinking, because now they said this is the final report, and that means we presume there must have been a preliminary report, which I don't think anybody here has access to. So we need to question their motive, and the motive doesn't seem to be, it doesn't matter all the good word they are saying, oh, we have partnership with Nigeria. You see, the whole idea is the world is realigning, and I keep saying this. There have been new realignment, there are new blocks forming, there are new power blocks, new economic power blocks being formed. So there's always a shaking here that, look, this country is important, and you want Nigeria to be, you still want to hold them on leash, because it used to be a colonial master to Africans. I mean, people who could sit down in one room and partition other people's country and say you own this as if we're just a piece of cake. So these people will never give up so easily when there is a reason for them to find a way of putting you where they call to align and put you in line. So the motive is very questionable. The timing is also questionable. However, every other election mission, we had the African Union, we have the Commonwealth, we have even the Nigerian Bar Association. Everyone has said, look, generally this election has been credible. And for me, even the Bible teaches that there's for every situation you must have 2 or 3 witnesses, and the other witnesses have all been more salutary than so this very negative European Union.
Okay, so just before we take this break, I want Ezenwa, just before we go for the break, Ezenwa, what kind of tone would have been more appropriate for this kind of report?
The tone of an observer. An observer has a tone. A non-partisan person has a language. You see, it's like if you saw the speech of the INEC chairman yesterday when he talked about their own review. He said the reason INEC had refused to join issues was it was going to advantage or disadvantage people, whatever comment that it makes. So there is a nuancing in language that you need to apply when you are non-partisan. You know, when you are not intending to, strengthen or weaken anybody. I say it, and I'm not saying I don't care about their timing. I don't care about the timing of the report, because the court is not stupid. Even if you bring the report, it does not mean that what you have said is intelligent people who are in court. They will interrogate what you have done and look at it on the basis of our law.
That is to say what we call probative value of the evidence standard.
So you are, those timing is for Ali and my brother here. You know, but the truth of the matter is that on the merit of it, on engaging the report itself, we must talk about, are there things we can take away? And I think that is where Ali took off from. There are things that we can take away from that report.
Okay,
but it does not stop us from saying what we think was not salutary in your
okay, that things we can take away. When we come back from this break, we'll begin to look at those things that Ezenwa has just mentioned.
We must all join hands to work hard so that we build a country for our grandchildren.
My hope is that we develop as a nation where every citizen is given his due right. There is transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Put the interests of this country first and foremost. Interest of Nigeria is being one nation, one people.
The need, if I mean, to put things right, things that have gone wrong before, to try and put right, for the love of country.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
My victory does not render me any more Nigerian than my opponent. Nor does this render them any less patriotic. They shall forever be my fellow compatriots, and I will treat them as such. They represent important constituencies and concerns that wisdom dare not ignore.
All right, welcome back. It's not really a laughing matter, but of course something ignited the smiles here. But let's come back to our conversation. Just before we announced the break, we talked about the takeaways from the EU's report, and of course to every bad side there's always a good side. And I think the report, like everyone in the studio, is saying, it's it kind of, I mean, this is an old saying, it's a wake-up call, for both INEC and all stakeholders, in an electoral process. So let's start off with Ayo, the takeaways. Let's begin with the call for a publicly accountable selection process for INEC members.
Well, I think we have had, you see, the thing with Nigerians is that we always have this crowd mentality. You see, I remember, I think sometimes, either last year or 2021, some people were supposed to be recs, and they had a petition written against them, and the Senate did not clear them. But everybody keep forgetting this part. We just jump in, we love what is going on, we like trending. Oh, the selection process in INEC, however we want to look at it, has been more transparent in the recent years than it used to be. We've had card-carrying members of political party representing INEC before as resident electoral commissioners. But today you have a more robust debate before even the Senate will sit to clear anybody today. So I think, and like I keep saying, it is never a perfect situation, but you always have room for improvement. And progressively over the last 20 3 or 24 years that we've come back to democracy in 1999, I think we have substantial improvement. We will always have room for improvement, but when you must always compare where you were and where you are going to and where you currently are. So I think where we are now is good, but not as good as we might want it, but we can always get better.
What do you think can be done? Because
I think when people are
erring members, you
have opportunity to call people out these days now. You have the social media, you have every media to call out. If names, I don't want to mention anybody's name directly on air here, but I know some people were recommended for positions in INEC and they were not cleared for so many reasons, ranging from character to partisanship and whatever it is. So I think we have progressed there. However, the electoral law also has been
let's deal with. Okay, go ahead.
Has been greatly improved, because there have been a force of law giving backing to a lot of actions that INEC has taken. For instance, before you don't have this review before election. Those days you review, then the thing is just go to the tribunal, everybody go and fight it out. But today, even before the results are announced, there is a room for review, such as we have, like you rightly said, in Abuja, Adamawa, and which other, I think we have about 3 states. So these are improvement. No matter how anybody want to look at it, we didn't have this 4 years ago.
Okay, let's again.
Well, I want to frame my question with a preface that we've had conversations on Good Morning Nigeria, and I think everyone was touching on that much earlier on regarding the caliber, quality, and ultimately performance of members of the electoral management body, more particularly the resident electoral commissioners. Because as some observers have indicated, I'm not talking now about election observers, or let's say some analysts have indicated, some of the challenges that INEC had to deal with, say at the national level, arose from the performance or lack of it of the resident electoral commissioners. In plain language, they said some of them were plain incompetent or clearly partisan, or not just up to scratch, including some of the preliminary processes, collection of your PVC, and so on and so forth. And at the national level, there have also been concerns about, so look, who should nominate the national commissioners who would serve at the national level. These are conversations we've had well before the elections, during the elections, and before the EU report. Are those still live issues, in your opinion, gentlemen? And if so, how do those live issues square with the recommendations, assuming we consider it positive, from the European Union Election Observer report?
Ali, let's start with you.
You expect, the thing is it's like egg and chicken, which comes first? Nigerians is the same environment, we're all susceptible to the same influences and forces. So when you expect that those who man our electoral process, election managers, the electoral empire, they are Nigerians, they are also product of the environment. So you don't expect people who are totally different from the rest of, but clearly this issue of competence and nomination, and I think this is something that people have debated over time. Let me just take this conversation outside the immediate theme here. Look at the conduct of the BBC, for example. I think we can relate to that, and the VOA. How the BBC, which is held in trust, managed by a board of trustees totally independent of government, and how their reportage cannot easily be influenced by government policy direction, as opposed to the Voice of America, which is directly funded by the Department of State. So you expect that he who pays the tax. And going back to the conversation earlier, opinion expressed by Mr. Ezongo here about the involvement, the political economy to it all. Now, if you look at, coming back to the issue, how do we get the right people to do the right thing? And I think this boils down to, individual patriotism, love for the state. and how much committed. We've tried academics. Well, some people say some of them have left less than shining rosy example. And we've tried people, technocrat, but the bottom line is they are Nigerians. Now, I think we are making maybe progress. Certainly we're not where we are in 1999 or 2003 even. And 2007 is work in progress. Who would have thought, I was just being very diplomatic, not calling names, but I will call names. Who would have thought that some people would be up in arms against Loretta, the former presidential aide, and her name was rejected by INEC. But another, it was, I think, in the, Oga Kinsley being the lawyer here, it was, I think, a piece of legislation that allowed card-carrying members to be members of the National Electoral Commission. To me, that is important, because from there, how do we expect a level playing field when you have partisans involved in the electoral process? Deep down, you might have renounced partisanship, yes, but deep down, there are people in your former, people you flock together, you still have some kind of sympathy because you are more open to them, you know them better than other people who, at a point, you are competitors. So how do we get out of this seeming quagmire? What do we do different? And this is the question. We've tried even men from the pulpit, people who are wearing traditional, people who are holding onto, the scriptures, but they too, how much have they fared? We've seen them in government. So the bottom line is that I think with time, I don't know, it's the Americans who have been at it 200 years plus, they still have people who are still not, when we have the colleges system now, people who are not easily induced. These are people who are well established, people of integrity, but look at it. So I think really.
I'm just wondering. This just came into my thoughts. Is it possible? As I don't know. Are relatives of those holding political office holders, are they eligible? Can they be selected or appointed into?
Let's just not do textbook. And the reason not to do textbook is because every conversation should be a solution providing platform. There was a rollback, a reversal with the last appointments of resident electoral commissioners. And the pretension to the contrary is what we suffered in most of the states. Because those states that were flagged as states where people who had this situation you raised now, who were relations of people in power, where governors hijacked the appointment of resident electoral commissioners, was different from what happened in November 2015, when you had, first and foremost, when even the president came on air and said he appointed a national commissioner, a national chairman that he didn't. That's President Goodluck Jonathan. That was a shift. It was a good relief for everybody. Professor Jega came and started working to improve the system, which means it was not a product of patronage and cronyism. After that, most of the resident electoral commissioners that came after that 2015, that were relieved in 2019, were also very exemplary. Many of them were exemplary. You could name names now. Their background was what Nigerians already knew. But in 2019, when that replacement came, we must find a way, and that is the positive from the EU report. We must find a way. It's accentuating the voice of civil society and the media that is saying that every part of your institution must not be open to cronyism and patronage, especially when it has something to do with the leadership recruitment process of our country. And that is a basic. We can't continue this excuse that, we are better than we had a reversal. And that reversal came where somebody who is managing hotel for somebody who is in government was appointed. Everybody knew it. A card-carrying member somebody who ran for governor is in INEC. We pushed that. And what was you were here? You brought the Senate, the chairman Senate committee on electoral matters. Senator, distinguished Senator Guy. You brought him here. Yeah. You pitched him against me in this same studio, and you heard him say that we did not bring affidavit. That our petition was not supported with affidavit. That was why they did not. And we went out and we were making a joke out of it. That's all. Simple affidavit removes even poster of the person. So the APC government needs to take a greater look. If we are not going to go back to the recommendations of the Justice Uwais Commission, then we need to devise a means in which people, at least people of character, if it is INEC, there are places, institutions of your country that you don't open to this level of patronage and cronyism. It's very important. Then the second point is the recommendation about safety for journalists. That is a given, that people who work in elections must be provided with security. And the people who have
provide the security.
The people who have
INEC?
No, that's what I'm saying. The people who have that responsibility, we give them a lot of comfort. You see, for 90% of the conversations you do after election, we zero in on what INEC did, what INEC did not do. But there are two critical institutions that a reform within them will help to guarantee free, fair election. Number one is security. If we continue to outsource the conversation about security provisioning after election and interrogate it.
But it was a plus, for instance, for the security that the training and instructions that they got played out well in their handling of the elections. We had elections in this country in the past where the security elements were openly partisan, if not destructive.
I'm coming in, yes. I'm not talking about, you see, we are working for improvements. Mm-hmm. What are those things that impact on credible election? Number one is opening of the polls and logistics. These two can't happen very well without security provisioning. So it is possible you have been able to deal with the issue of violence, minimize the issue of violence. But if you don't come on time to escort election materials to the points where they should be escorted, it is that morning that you start doing parade. Mm-hmm. You have impacted the opening of polls.
Add that to part of what we heard after the elections, that in a few places or in some cases, the RECs that were supposed to have hired, say, X number of vehicles, X minus.
It was in this studio now. I'm the one that.
What I'm saying is that's not a security matter.
No, but I'm coming to.
We have very limited. Sorry, everyone. Let me let you know. We have very limited time, so we really need to. And I'm interested. I'm also interested in how to provide security for journalists covering elections.
Now, that's what I'm saying. That the security provisioning needs to be interrogated. I'm interested in that because we don't always put them on the spot. The next other people we over-respect are the politicians and their candidates and their role in election. When you talk about violence, it is in the domain of those who want dubious advantage in elections, who want to cut ballot boxes, who want to create voter suppression, who want to create fear and siege mentality. And it is the responsibility of reform conversations within those political parties. And we need to do that. So as INEC is auditing the election, political parties under their own platform, IPAC, should have reviews also and say, put a mirror before us as politicians. Did we do well? What did we do that perhaps if we had done things better, it could upgrade the quality of our elections? We could also come as as the security and say INEC is reviewing. Can we also review? We did well. So review is not what went bad. Review is what went well that we can improve upon, and what didn't go well that we can change or also improve. That for me is
okay. In 3 minutes, Kingsley, I don't know if you have a question for you.
No, basically the same issue that is right there on the table in terms of the caliber of persons. Now we keep talking about an issue here, but which we have not resolved. Who should be appointing election management commissioners, whether at the national level or at the state, as regs? Because there's been a suggestion that, oh no, these powers should go, and that will require, of course, an amendment. Should go to either the legislature on this own, or should go to the Chief Justice of the Federation, NJC, all kinds of things. Because the conversation we are having, gentlemen, has to do with the general elections at the national level. If we were to reduce this one now to local government elections, being conducted by the state independent electoral commissions, you know precisely. So you know that they are clearly partisan and so on and so forth. But we say the view is that if you got it right at the national level, then it becomes a lot easier to cascade it to the subnational level.
Well,
you have just 2 minutes.
About NJC electing or nominating the electoral commissioners, but you ask yourself a sincere question. They've been handling the justice area. How well have they even fared? We have seen where once a federal high court gives a ruling, another state court, then you find out about 3 courts giving a ruling on the state. So you see, the thing, like I think Ali said it clearly, we cannot be who we are and expect angels to come and take over. Most of this problem just lies on who we are. It really doesn't matter who is appointing or nominating. If we don't change our attitude that, look, election should be a contest, not a war, then it doesn't matter whether we are angels are the ones appointing or spirit are appointing. It is still Nigerians that will be appointed. Those Nigerians will have friends, they will have a relationship, they will have association. So honestly, it has to start from our mind, because Kingsley was saying something here which is very big. If most times we have been looking at the federal, but honestly, whatever goes on in the state and the local government, you can't even start discussing it, because it's a disgrace, it's a shame, something that must not even be spoken about. You find out that local government election is conducted, and whichever party is in power just wins everything. And we don't, so most times they say there's a local government election and we are living in that locality. You wouldn't even know there was an election, only for you to see result in the night. So for me, I am worried to say this person should do it or this body should do it. Honestly, I'm more interested in the fact that Nigerians have to begin to think Nigerians and begin to think like human beings, because for now I don't know how we think.
All right, Ayobami Oyalowo, a political economist. I share your views, and I hope that it's a progressive development. You Hopefully, know, having a reorientation, mental reorientation. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and I do hope and keep my fingers crossed that we'll get there. Thank you very much for your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Let me also appreciate Ali M. Ali, former spokesperson, APC Presidential Campaign Council. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
My brother Ezenwa Nwagu, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. When he's posed like this, be very wary of him. It's very dangerous when it's like this. Thank you very much, Ezenwa, for coming. All right, let's quickly take a look at sports from our sports desk.